Sira and I were born just minutes apart. They said our hearts began beating in the same hour, and we grew intertwined, sharing our first breath. Growing up, Sira was always the brave one, fiery, bright, unafraid to push boundaries. I was quieter, content to watch and soothe. We were as different as the sun and moon, and yet somehow it made us feel whole. I remember how Sira would lead us, running ahead in the village while I kept my pace slow, absorbing every detail. The children's laughter, the old men playing bow under the shade, the scent of herbs drying in the warm sun. She would laugh at my reluctance to hurry, calling me soft-footed Kaya. But I didn't mind. It was Sira's nature to shine brightly, while mine was to reflect her warmth, to help balance her light. As we grew older, that balance was tested. Dakarai returned to our village after many seasons away. He was no longer the shy boy I remembered from our youth. He had become a warrior, respected, admired by many, including Sira. She was drawn to his strength, and I could see why. But my feelings for Dakarai were different, deeper, for I had known him long before the world celebrated his bravery. I knew the boy with big dreams, the one who spoke softly of his hopes to protect, to be someone others could rely on. I remembered his quiet, hesitant smile by the river, when I told him he could be anything he wished. When Dakarai returned, the bond we shared was not one forged by his new status, but by something that had grown long before. He sought me out in the quiet moments, and my heart felt a joy I had never expected, like a deep-rooted tree finally coming into bloom. But Sira was captivated. She, who had always led, now found herself determined to capture Dakarai's attention. I watched her at the village festivals, laughing, flirting, seeking his gaze. Her joy at his presence slowly gave way to frustration as she realized his attention drifted to me in every quiet moment. I wanted to speak to her, to explain, but how could I? Love wasn't something to be parceled out, to be claimed. One day I saw it in her eyes. The fire that was once joyous was now laced with anger. She approached me, her words sharp, her voice trembling as she accused me of taking Dakarai from her. "You always have to win, don't you, Kaya?" she spat, her eyes filled with hurt. "Why do you always get what I want? Why does he look at you that way?" "Sira, please," I whispered, trying to hold back my tears. "I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. I didn't ask for this. Dakarai and it's not something I planned." But Sira's face hardened. She shook her head, her voice breaking. "I won't lose this time, Kaya." "Not to you." I heard whispers later of Sira seeking out the sorceress who lived beyond the edge of the village. The villagers spoke of her in hushed tones, a woman who dealt in the power that lay between light and darkness. My heart sank. I knew Sira's desperation, and I feared what she might do. It wasn't long after that Dakarai began to change. At first it was subtle, a blankness in his gaze, a tiredness that I couldn't quite place. Then the spark, the warmth that had always defined him, began to fade entirely. I found him by the river one morning, staring out at the water, empty. "Dakarai?" I called softly, approaching him. He looked up, his eyes distant, as though he barely recognized me. "Kaya?" he whispered, his voice hollow. I knelt beside him, taking his hand. "What's wrong? Talk to me. You're not yourself." He turned away, his shoulders slumping. "I don't know. It's like there's nothing left inside me. I feel lost." My heart shattered at his words. I knew that whatever had been done, it had been meant to alter his love, to steal it, but the effect was far worse. It had stolen him entirely. I confronted Sira that night. She was in tears, the weight of her actions hanging heavily over her. "What did you do, Sira?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "What did you do to Dakarai?" She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. "I just wanted him to love me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't know it would be like this. I didn't know it would break him." "You let jealousy blind you," I cried, tears streaming down my face. "You've ruined everything. Dakarai is lost because of you." Sira collapsed to the ground, sobbing. I'm sorry, Kaya. I thought I could make him love me. I thought it would make everything better. But the damage was done. Dakarai was lost to us, his heart a hollow shell, neither hers nor mine, just a void where once there was warmth. Sira's jealousy had led her to darkness, and we both paid the price. There was only one choice left for me, to save Dakarai. I had to go to the sorceress myself. I travelled to the edge of the village, trembling as I entered the place, shrouded in whispers and shadows. The journey itself was daunting. The path was overgrown and the forest seemed to close in around me, the air thick with an unnatural stillness. Every step I took was filled with doubt and fear, but I could not turn back. The thought of Dakarai, lost and empty, drove me forward. The sorceress looked at me with eyes that seemed to pierce my soul. Her dwelling was dark, filled with the scent of herbs and something acrid that made my skin crawl. I pleaded with her, begged her to undo what had been done. She looked at me, her expression almost pitying. "There is a way," she said, "but it requires true sacrifice. Only a heart that loves selflessly can break such magic." I didn't hesitate. Dakarai's heart had been stolen because of love twisted by jealousy, and only pure love could heal him. The sorceress led me to a small altar, her voice soft as she explained what I must do. I was to give a part of myself, my own essence, my own life force, to restore what had been taken from Dakarai. The ritual would bind us, and though I did not know what it would mean for me, I knew I had to do it. The sorceress began her incantations, her voice rising and falling like the wind through the trees. I felt a warmth in my chest, a pull that seemed to draw something from deep within me. My vision blurred, and the world around me seemed to fade. All I could think of was Dakarai, his smile, his laughter, the way his eyes lit up when he spoke of his dreams. I held on to those memories, using them to ground myself as I felt my strength begin to wane. When it was over, I was weak, barely able to stand. The sorceress looked at me, her eyes softer now, almost kind. "Go," she said. "He will need you, and you must be there for him." I returned to the village, each step a struggle. The sun was setting as I approached the river, where I knew Dakarai would be. He was sitting where we used to sit, staring out at the water, his expression still distant. I took his hand, my own trembling, and told him how much I loved him. I told him I would give anything to bring him back. I spoke until my voice broke, tears streaming down my face as I held him. "Dakarai, please," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I love you. Come back to me." For a moment, there was nothing, just the stillness of the evening, the sound of the river flowing past. Then, slowly, I felt his hand tighten around mine. His eyes, once dull and empty, began to clear, to shine again with the warmth I remembered. He looked at me, truly looked at me, and I knew he was back. "Kaya," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. You saved me." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I would do anything for you, Dakarai. I love you." He pulled me close, and in that moment, all the pain, all the fear seemed to lift. He was back, my Dakarai, because of love that wasn't forced or demanded, but freely given. Sarah watched from a distance. Her eyes, once bright with jealousy, were now filled with sorrow. She had lost not only Dakarai, but also a part of herself. She had always been the bold one, the one who led, but in her desperation to claim what wasn't hers to take, she had lost her way. I saw her watching as Dakarai embraced me, her tears falling silently. My heart ached for her, my twin, my other half, but I knew this was something she had to face alone. In the days that followed, I tried to reach out to Sira. I would find her sitting alone, staring at the horizon, her eyes distant. I spoke to her, tried to remind her of the times we shared, of the bond that had always been between us. But she was different now, quieter, her fire dimmed. She listened, but she rarely spoke, and I knew that the weight of what she had done was a burden she carried heavily. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found her by the river, the same place where I had saved Dakarai. She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Kaya," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I wanted so much to be seen, to be loved. I didn't realize what I was losing until it was too late." I knelt beside her, taking her hand. "Sira, you are my sister. No matter what has happened, I love you. We can find our way back. It will take time, but we can heal." She looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I saw a flicker of the old Sira, the sister who had always led, who had always shone so brightly. She nodded, a single tear sliding down her cheek. "I hope so, Kaya. I truly do." As the weeks passed, Dakarai grew stronger, his spirit returning to what it once was. We spent our days together, walking through the village, talking by the river, rebuilding what had been nearly lost. Sira kept her distance at first, but slowly she began to join us. She would sit with us by the fire in the evenings, listening as Dakarai spoke of his travels, of the battles he had fought. She smiled more often, though it was a softer smile, tinged with the pain of what had been. One day, as we sat by the river, Sira turned to me, her eyes clear. "Kaya, I want to make things right. I want to be the sister you deserve, the one I used to be." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You are my sister, Sira. We will find our way together." Dakarai watched us, his eyes warm, and I knew that we were healing, all of us. The journey had been painful, filled with darkness and doubt, but we had emerged on the other side, stronger for it. The love between us, between sisters, between lovers, had been tested, but it had endured. And as the sun set over the village, casting its golden light over the river, I knew that we would be all right. The balance between Sira and me had shifted, but it had not broken. We were still two halves of a whole, still intertwined, sharing the same breath, the same heart. And as we sat there, the three of us, I felt a sense of peace. Love, true love, was not without its trials. It was not without its sacrifices. But it was worth it. It was always worth it. The sun set over the village as we stood by the river, Dakarai's hand in mine, Sira watching from afar. The balance between us had shifted, but we would find it again, somehow. Sira and I had always been two halves of a whole, and despite everything, I hoped we could heal, that she could find her way back to me. Because in the end, love, whether between sisters or lovers, had to be rooted in truth, in selflessness, or it was nothing but shadows. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more content like this. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss any of our future uploads. We've got a lot of exciting content on the way, and I'd love for you to be part of this journey.